Hello everyone and welcome to Quality Online Assessment in Languages 7 to 10, a short professional learning video to support teachers who may now be teaching in an online environment. As we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the lands on which we are meeting today and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and to any Aboriginal people who may be watching with us today. Here's what we're going to take a look at in this video. We'll start with key considerations for online assessment, then look at characteristics of effective assessment online. Next, we'll talk about the right technology and tools before finishing with modifying existing tasks for the online environment. What are the key considerations for online assessment? First and foremost, be realistic with your expectations. What outcomes and content will you focus on? Consider which outcomes and content will be best suited to teaching in a remote learning environment. If your students all have access to an online platform with interaction, you can still assess interacting. However, if access to technology is limited, you may want to focus on assessing accessing and responding and composing. Nothing is off the table. You may just need to change what and how you were planning to assess to make your life more manageable. Slow and steady. We should be thinking of this as preparing for a marathon, not just a sprint. Time spent carefully planning will not be wasted. Students will not necessarily get through the content as quickly as usual. Be mindful of their levels of anxiety, as well as the varying demands on their time and attention. For example, their internet may be down for the day, or they may be helping a sibling. Embed time for circling back to concepts, ideas and content that students have struggled with. This is likely to be more than usual, as they will be working independently more often. Time frames. Embed flexibility. Consider that not all students will be able to attend specifically timed synchronous sessions, so consider recording some of your sessions. Time frames won't be as fast as in a normal classroom. Everything will slow down to adjust to the situation we find ourselves in. Evidence of learning. What do you need your students to submit or show as evidence of learning? Are there various ways they can show their learning? Careful planning to cater for differing learning situations. Keep the varying situations of your students in the back of your mind as you plan your learning opportunities. How can you cater for those who can't join you in real time? How can you add scaffolds for those that might be struggling to be independent in their learning? Learning and assessing from home will be different to in-class learning, and that's okay. So what does effective assessment online look like? The answer is it doesn't look that different to any effective assessment. Effective online assessment is still comprised of assessment for, as, and of learning. They are the cornerstones of quality assessment and need to continue in virtual spaces. Effective online assessment of learning tasks are explicit, so your students know what is expected and how the task will be assessed virtually. You will need to be even more clear in setting tasks in the virtual class, as communication channels may be compromised. Ensure your assessment of learning tasks have a clear purpose, context, and audience, ensuring students are given opportunities to demonstrate the skills they have acquired throughout the unit of learning. When creating your assessment online, don't lose sight of the academic nature of the assessment. Technology is a tool only, and it should not change the intent of your assessment. Even in a virtual classroom, the tool supports the learning and not the other way round. While we are using technology to assess, we are not assessing students' ability in using technology. There is no outcome for that in our syllabuses, therefore we do not assess it. As we begin to teach students who are not in the physical classroom, there are ways we can help make assessment more explicit, supporting students to work through activities and tasks more easily. Activate prior knowledge and arouse curiosity. How will you hook students in at a level appropriate to each individual? Use the right tools to embed thinking strategies. Give students time to talk and to practice. Give mini lessons with check-in points and exit cards. Model the work, describe concepts in multiple ways, check for understanding, and provide clear feedback. Scaffold the content so it's manageable for you and your students. Touch base regularly and provide ongoing feedback. Finally, seek feedback from your students on how it's all going. Ask them how you're doing in this new world, how they're finding the content and pace, and tweak where required. What are some ways you can support assessment as and assessment for learning activities? Assessment as learning occurs when students are their own assessors. Students monitor their own learning, ask questions, and use a range of strategies to decide what they know and can do and what they need to do next to succeed. Assessment for learning involves teachers using evidence about students' knowledge, understanding, and skills to inform their teaching. It usually occurs throughout the teaching and learning cycle. Provide students with samples and models of strong and weak work. Provide students with a clear and understandable vision of the learning target. Offer regular descriptive feedback via email, video conferencing, or digital platforms. Engage students in self-assessment and encourage them to set goals. Use student feedback to adjust your teaching and learning program. And break the learning into small, manageable components for students. Here are some examples of assessment as and for learning. Students play an online game, for example Quizlet or Kahoot, to see which vocabulary or characters they know so far. Students write down any vocabulary or characters they still need to learn. Students complete a written quiz via Microsoft Forms or Google Forms, so you can quickly check progress on new content. Students write an email to a classmate about a certain topic. When each student receives an email, they suggest any corrections as well as commenting on the information shared, answering any questions asked. And students work on a collaborative document in pairs or small groups shared with the teacher for feedback. Let's take a look now at planning an assessment of learning task. The goal of quality assessment is better learning. What are the goals of your online assessment? We assess because we need to gather evidence about student achievement in relation to the outcomes. It enables students to show how much they know and what they can do, and it assists teachers to evaluate and improve teaching and learning programs. Limit your outcomes, perhaps focus on 2 to 4, depending on the task, and ensure that your task clearly assesses the identified outcomes. By doing so, you will be assessing depth and your task will be more manageable. For each communicating outcome you assess, there will be at least one understanding outcome that you will be assessing too. Over the course of a unit of work, make sure you assess a range of outcomes, both formally and informally. Refer to your scope and sequence and make sure you have identified a range of outcomes from both the communicating and understanding strands. To ensure your online tasks are valid and reliable, it's important that you develop the marking guidelines as you design the task. By doing so, you are able to clearly identify what is required of the students. It also enables you to see whether the task is clearly linked to the outcomes. We should never ask students to do what we have not taught them. We must arm them with all the skills necessary to complete the task. In the case of a virtual classroom, this may include technology, for example online tools. Backward mapping will support you in the development of these skills. Cater to the needs of all students. In developing the assessment task, you must consider equitable access to all students, and adjustments should be made to ensure all students have full access to the online task. Let's take a quick look at some of the tools available which may support you to assess student achievement, both formally and informally. Your teaching, learning and assessment may already be supported through your school's learning management software. Applications for the administration, documentation, tracking, reporting and delivery of educational courses. You may see one or two on the slide which you're already using. Some schools don't have a school-wide platform and leave it up to individual teachers. If the decision is up to you, consider the following. Ideally, use a platform your students and/or other teachers are familiar with so that you have inbuilt support around you. Google Classroom and Microsoft Teams both sit within our portal and are fully supported by the department. When we recently surveyed language teachers, Google Classroom was the most widely used platform, although Microsoft Teams is catching up. There are support guides available for all platforms online, so allow time to professionally develop yourself. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Here are some of the apps you can use to create your resources and make online learning more engaging, which I'm sure you're already using, and which are also ideal for the virtual world. Take some time to research which ones you're not familiar with and practice using them with your students. This may be the time for them to shine as they show you what to do. Some schools are also using Adobe Connect to deliver lessons. Adobe Connect allows you to share your screen and your students can see you as you present to them. Also, the chat function allows for immediate question and answers. Many of you will be familiar with this mode of delivery from the professional learning run by the Languages and Culture team. You could use Adobe Connect to assess students' oral responses in relation to interacting, accessing and responding, and composing. You could assess small groups at a time, while other students continue with set work. Through the Digital Learning Selector, the department offers a number of online organisers and digital tools which you can use in your virtual classroom for students to present their ideas and/or to collaborate with each other. Some of them you may be familiar with, such as Google Slides, and some may be new, so take the time to explore. Search Digital Learning Selector in Google and it will take you to the department's page. Here are 3 strategies for getting results in an online world. This link at the bottom of the screen was shared by Mark Grace in our virtual staff room on Yammer, and we thought some of the strategies would work well in the virtual space, supporting students as they learn more independently. Everything I know but wasn't asked question. When you set a little progress quiz, ask students to recall everything they can about a certain topic or concept. It's like a brain dump. Research has shown that brain dumps improve long-term memory. Nailed it, not sure, boxes. When students go back over a quiz they've taken, it's hard for them to remember what they were thinking when they took it. It's hard for adults, anyone, to do this. Add a space for students to identify how confident they are in their responses. Make sure they feel safe to respond honestly. A suggestion is check boxes for nailed it and not sure. Student-created quizzes and tests. When we create quizzes, students see them as something imposed on them by us. They don't understand the process and can see it as unfair. When we involve students in the process, something changes. They see what goes into making a fair and unbiased assessment. We'd like to finish today by giving you something which we hope is familiar to you. You may remember some of the following tasks from last year's statewide Adobe Connect session on our top 10 favourite assessment tasks. For the purpose of this video, we've decided to take some of these assessment of learning tasks and adapt them to a virtual space. We did this to remind you that you don't necessarily have to design a new task, you may just need to tweak what you already have. Wherever you see country or language in square brackets, like on this slide, replace it with a country and the language relevant to you. Exchange to country. You're applying for a student exchange program. For Part A, the original version of this task had fill out the application form. You can see we've made amendments in red for an online version with the teacher providing a Google form. For Part B, you have been matched with your host. The original version had role play the first phone or video call between yourself and them. And you can see we've added more detail on how to do that in an online world using Flipgrid. You will need to provide clear instructions to students on how to complete and submit each part of the task, and that will vary depending on your context. Let's take a look at another one, Film Festival. The original version had read the reviews of all the films at the film festival, text message your friend to discuss and decide which film you will go to watch. In this new version, we've added screen recording, which works easily on iPhone, or screenshot, which works on most phones. Once again, you will need to provide clear instructions to students on how to complete the task, which will vary depending on your context. Here's one we didn't need to change at all, Food Vlogger. You are on holiday in country. Create a vlog showcasing popular street food and eating etiquette there. Add subtitles in language to appeal to a wider audience. As students are creating a video with subtitles, they can do this whether learning from home or not. We're sure you have assessment tasks which you can use without modifying or with just a few tiny tweaks. While this professional learning has focused on years 7 to 10, the same strategies can easily work with your senior students. What's important is that you stay up to date by regularly checking NESA's COVID-19 page, which includes updates on the HSC. We haven't included any information in this video, as the advice changes regularly, so it's best to check yourself. And don't forget, we have an e-course for Stage 6 school-based assessment. Search for RG10281 in MyPL. Before we finish, don't forget to get in touch if ever you need our support. We have our virtual staff room in Yammer, which is the Languages New South Wales 7 to 12 group. We have over 400 teachers interacting there, asking questions, offering tips for teaching in the virtual space, and sharing their resources. And all our details are at our blog, languagesnewsouthwales.com. Finally, don't forget to keep checking our two key websites, the Languages Curriculum site and the Learning from Home Hub. Both URLs are on the screen now. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to hear from you soon.